the first thing I ever read by Anthony Burgess was a guide to English literature for students of English literature, where he specifically explains that Shakespeare, Dickens, Kit Marlowe, they were seen as tools of cultural indoctrination. They were seen as a way of handing on a legacy of Britishness, first in the colonies and then as the empire dissolved in various places across the world. They're seen as a way of handing on culture, handing on tradition. And so there's no way that Burgess could have written anything without having an eye on his future legacy. And in that way, it's interesting that books like this have in some ways been written out of what's seen as the canon of great English literature. Obviously, some of the censorship happened because of the sex and violence in the book, but the issues of structural state violence and the idea of dystopia also make it incredibly difficult and uncomfortable if you see that in terms of the history of English writing. There are other writers like H.G. Wells, for example, who are incredibly important but not seen as part of that canon, as part of that tradition. So if we're having a big moment for reviving English literature, I think 50 years since Clockwork Orange is a really, really important time to come back, look at the darker side of English literature and ask, is this as important as Shakespeare, as Dickens in his darkest times? I think it definitely is. All of our great writers, all of our greatest writers, and we have a lot of them, were dark, scary people who went to some very, very frightening places, and that's what makes writing great.